Ashe family, welcome back to another episode of My Unapologetic Perspective. This is the podcast where we give our point of view on controversial topics from my experience, Black history, and our knowledge as African Americans. Black history presently lives in us so we can continue to excel into the future. It's one thing to know Black history. It's another thing to take advantage of what the people in Black history did for you. I am your host, Martre Baker Stevens, and to the right of me is Shaquan Battle.
Yep.
And to the right of him is Jerome Battle.
What it is, what's shaking. Everything's copacetic, you dig?
We appreciate all the love and support we've been getting on social media. We've gotten more subscribers on YouTube. The last episode did really good on YouTube. Comments on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. All of the love that's been shown to us, we gladly appreciate it. We like to, of course, on this podcast, we talk about Black history. Of course, we talk about current affairs and news that's currently affecting Black people today. Of course, we talk about racism and all of those other things. And we've had a couple of episodes where we had a little fun alongside talking about history or Black culture. And today we're going to have one of those episodes where it's less serious, but it's still important information to know. So today we're going to be talking about the African American language, Black language, or Ebonics, or all of the other terminologies they come up with to describe the way that we express ourselves or the way that we talk. When y'all did y'all research, or just when I sent this as the topic, like, what are y'all thoughts about just the African American language in general?
Our language is music, and our music is language. Yeah. Dad could be talking, and we could be looking at one another, and we'll understand what each other's saying without even saying anything.
Right.
So our language, it could give you access, or our language could be a barrier for you.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think it's our culture. I think it's we have a unique way of communicating, and it's always been as such. Even if you go back to our African roots, the way that we communicate is profoundly different than any other nationality, not just in America but in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's unique for a lot of reasons. And as we go through this podcast, my goal is to get into some of that, why it's so unique.
Right.
But obviously you see it when we greet each other. One of the things that I notice about the way we communicate versus non-Black individuals, if you just watch the movements of Black people when we see people we know, or people that you are willing to greet and they're willing to greet you, if it's not done with the mouth, it's done with the head. Right. So when you see a Black guy, the head goes up.
Yeah.
What's up? See a white guy, how you doing? The head goes down. And the thing is, it's universal.
Right.
I don't care where you see it at. And a lot of people never really notice it, but the next time you're out in public and you see people greeting, check it out, and you'll see the way we greet each other and how profoundly different it is.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people don't understand, like, outside of the Black culture, a lot of people don't understand it when they hear it. Like, sometimes I'll be talking to Black people at work, and I'm like, I bet you these people have no idea what we just said. That's know what I mean? Because it doesn't follow any rules, but our language is still so beautiful, and it's something that we can be proud of, because from that plantation and on, Black language just has evolved so much.
That's right.
Right? And then you can look at different eras of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, 2010s to the current day, on just how much slang words or the language just have evolved, but it's really the same thing. It's like Taco Bell, right? So right. You go to Taco Bell, you get beef or chicken, and they wrap it up in a hard taco or a soft taco or a chalupa. It's all the same stuff. So even though the words may change from generation to generation, it's all the same things. That's and right. We all understand it in the same way.
The funny thing is, one of the things that I found out whenever we research like language and communication, when it comes to the way that Black people communicate, 3 terms usually come up: Swahili, in terms of African descent. and
Swahili
way-
or Kiswahili.
Oh, that's right. And slang and Ebonics.
Yeah.
The funny thing is when you talk about other languages that fit a specific nationality or group, it's called dialect.
Yeah.
With us, it's called slang. Why? Why is there a difference? It's a dialect. It's a form of communication amongst a specific race that is understood primarily by that race. That's what dialect is.
You never really hear it called Creole either.
No. It's always slang,
Right.
Ebonics, and the problem we have though is it's meant for us, but we use it in all situations. Give you an example. I've watched First 48 a million times, and when they get a black suspect and they're talking to him, I'm saying though, right? I was at home, know what I'm saying? And they was like, no, we don't know what you're saying. That's why you're using it in the wrong, the wrong environment. They don't understand.
Right.
Right.
We'll get into a little bit of that in a little bit.
Absolutely.
One of the things I want to correct, because as I was doing this research, one of the things that a lot of other people talked about was they're crediting a lot of the African American language to the Gen Z people. So they say this is the way the Gen Z talk, and a lot of different phrases and words like slay and keep it 100, clap back, and hit different. Like you seeing a lot more white people talk like this, and a lot of this is because of the internet. A lot of this because pop culture takes a big chunk out of hip hop culture.
That's right.
And hip hop culture, it comes from the black community.
That's right.
So when things start to cross over, a lot of people don't understand that when your little white kids say these words, this is not their generation making up these words.
That's
This
right.
comes from the black community and has always been in the black community. So just because Lil Johnny hang out with Raheem don't mean that their generation created this slang or whatever.
That's right.
So we even have to go back and take ownership of our own language, because
That's
this
right.
is not a Gen Z thing. This is something that's been going on for generations within the African
You
American
can even
culture.
go back to the mid to late 80s, and then of course the 90s and early 2000s, when music started incorporating this black lingo in their music.
Yeah.
The biggest purchasers of music has always been
White America.
the white Americans between the ages of 12 and 21. So these are the folks that are listening to that because they're buying the music. Of course, we were getting it, but we weren't buying it.
Yeah.
So they're hearing this in our music,
Right.
and then they're taking on those concepts in their conversations and vocabulary, and people assume that that's something that they created. It's always happened. This is nothing new.
Right.
It's always happened. So and we call it black lingo or what. It's our culture.
Right.
This is what we do. This is how we communicate. Nobody's sitting around thinking about making up terms.
Right.
It's just how we communicate. And you can go back to the 70s. I really feel like I should have been an adult in the 70s because I love the language that they used back in the 70s, right? You dig?
You did.
So that's my era. My dad talked that way. My grandfather used to say some of those same terms like out of sight.
Right.
What's happening, what's shaking, what it is. I think about those things even today, and I talk that way now.
Right.
And I know people be looking at me like, what is he talking about?
Right.
Right. Because I still call people Slim.
Right.
What's happening, Slim?
And that's the funny thing. Like, even if you look at white America, like I said, the age of the internet has expounded this a lot, is because, of course, you have access to your favorite rappers page. You have access to all of these different bloggers that talk this way. But for us as black people, this is something that we hear in the household early on.
That's right.
Right. So this is the way you talk. So we talk that way. Our mother talked this way. Our grandparents talk this way. Our community talks this way. And this is something that we're raised up in. And we already understand the lingo outside of what the dominant society says is proper English. But of course, the origins of it, because our ancestors were stripped of their native tongue,
That's right.
which none of the native tongues actually survived here in this country. So we were forced to speak the King's English or the French or the Dutch or the Spanish and all of those things. But for us on this podcast, we're Black Americans, so we're going to talk about the King's English more than we'll talk about the Caribbeans or the Spanish speaking cultures. but they weren't allowed to read and write, and putting together sentences wasn't always correct according to the rules of standard.
That's right.
You put sentences together in a way that allowed the other person to understand what it is what you're saying. Like if you was to take Spanish, right? Spanish doesn't necessarily translate into good English, because if you structure a sentence in English, you can't just substitute Spanish words and think that correlates to a sentence in Spanish.
That's right.
You actually have the nouns change, the verbs change, where the subject changes. So the sentence is a lot different in Spanish than it is in English. And that's the same way it is for us, the way that our ancestors were able to put together sentences. It didn't always come in that structural meaning. It came into a way of, this is my old language and the way that it was structured, and now I just input English words to create a sentence for them to understand what it is that I'm saying. And then, of course, after enslavement, you had the Great Migration that took all of these same languages everywhere. So if you go to New York or Philly or Chicago and Detroit, yes, they're city and they say that we country, but if you listen to them talk, they still have those accents of countryness that says, okay, you got family from the South, or your ancestors are from the South, because you can still hear it in those accents. But like I said before, like our kids learn this early on in the household, and this, what you hear every day is what you repeat. And one of the things is that it's also the systems of sounds when it comes to Black people speaking, the accents, the tones, the depth of when Black people speak. Like you can hear it in their voice. Like there's been studies done that says, how easily it is to determine that you're speaking to a Black person on the phone. Like if I'm at work, I know exactly when I'm speaking to a Black person. Like right. Even if they use proper English, like they can speak like they came from Princeton. There are a few tones and sound pitches that let me know that you Black.
We talked about this before. We can hear it, and you can hear the opposite when white people are talking, but they're trying to mimic Black people.
Yeah.
Like if you listen to a white person say salt and pepper, the rap group,
yeah,
the way they say it, it's like it's forced.
Yeah.
It's not natural, right? The other thing is we're the most rhythmatic people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We speak in rhythm. Mm-hmm. We speak in rhythm. We speak to the tone of the drum.
Yeah.
Right? It just the way we communicate in everyday life, just everyday conversation, we speak in rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we understand it. Some white people can understand it, but for the most part, most white people can't.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, we don't understand the way white people communicate. I'll give you an example. If you ever sat in a courtroom and listened to the lingo in the courtroom, most Black people have no clue what's being said.
Yeah.
From the entry of the judge, when they tell you to stand, all rise, and they say what they say, most people have a clue what they say.
A lot of that stuff is old King's English.
That's right. So it works both ways, that sometimes they don't understand us, and we certainly don't understand them in a court of law.
Right. And from the research that I gathered, like when they talk about understanding Black people by their tones of voice, by their accents, just by speaking to them on the phone or just hearing their voice, a lot of people like from the UK said it isn't the same over there. So like if you listen to like a Trevor Noah, right?
That's right.
Like he doesn't, like you can hear him and you don't think that he's Black.
You just
because
know
a lot of
South African.
Yeah. Because a lot of the accents over there are like very similar to white people. So it's not like it is here in the United States. So when we speak about that, you can tell that when you're speaking to a Black person, we're talking about here in this country for the people that's listening.
But Trevor Noah still speaks in rhythm.
He does.
He still speaks in rhythm.
He does. So, but you think a lot of that comes from him being in America? Because if you watch shows like Snowfall and you look at what's his name, Damson Idris, like they can literally sound like they're from the United States. Like Idris Elba, like you don't know that they're from the UK when they speak in proper.
It could be
in American English.
I think sometimes we also forget two other things: intellect and talent.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have somebody that's intellectual and talented, they can do that.
But I've only heard one white person able to do that, which is Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
I maybe not talk like a Black person, but I've heard actors be able to play multiple types of characters with different accents. Like the guy that played Andy Griffin, when he played Matlock.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard him change his dialect. The guy that played Archie Bunker, I've heard him change his dialect. So yeah, it happens. I've heard white people be able to do it too. So.
When you get into African American language, a lot of white people don't understand some of these concepts because a lot of there are no rules really. It's just you have to be in the culture to understand what it is. Like some people are like, why do y'all do that? I'm like, I don't know, but it's part of our culture. It's just something that we do.
There are rules. It has to flow. It has to flow.
But what I say, I'm no booze. There are no boundaries.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
Yeah, but it has to flow.
Right.
I mean, you can't just make up a stupid term and think people gonna grasp onto it. I mean, it's got to flow.
And a lot of times is the meaning, right? Like if I was to say, y'all been in there for a good minute.
That's right.
Like a minute means it's not a long time.
Right.
But in our vocabulary, you've been in there for a good minute means you've been gone a long time.
You've been in there a while too
right?
long.
And bad equals good.
That's right.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. Bad means good. Like, okay, can you explain something? I don't know, but bad means good.
I think what was unique about our culture and the spread of the different dialects is that even before the internet, it traveled and it was almost universal.
Yeah.
Like somebody could come up with a term, or you would hear a term in New York, and then you would go to Atlanta and people would be using the same term the same way. Now, there are certain terms that were used differently. I remember when we were using the term, it's tight. Yo, that's tight.
Mm-hmm.
That means that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Up north, it meant something totally different.
Right.
But for the most part, most of the terms were universal. Even when you went out west, if somebody said, oh, yo, that's hot, it meant the same thing out in California. Right? So a lot of our terms became universal, and it did it without the internet. There was no internet.
Yeah.
So the term still traveled just quickly, and it was universal, even in Houston.
Right. Terms like, it's a little ways. Like, where you going? Going to McDonald's. Oh, that's a little ways down there.
Yeah, that's
like for us, that means far.
That's a distance.
But a little ways don't mean. But I remember it was a few weeks ago. My coworker came in there and he was like, "Stevens, like there's nothing to do in the office. You want me to go out and help the shift?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Do you want me to stay around?" I said, "Nah, you can." I said, "Nah, you can kick it." He walked out the door. I said, "Hey, come back here."
You can just stick around.
Kick it means you can relax. You can stay in here.
Yeah.
That don't mean like kick rocks. You can kick it.
A few months ago, it was a New York thing on Twitter, and it was they asked a question. They said, New Yorkers, which is further, mad fall or dumb fall? Mad fall means it's all the way over there, but you'll get there. Dumb fall is I don't even know why it's that distance.
It's amazing. One of the ones that a lot of people, because they actually talked about presenting some of this stuff in the school system, and one of the things that people didn't understand was when it came to past, present, and future. When you talk about tense, when it comes to talking about structure of a sentence, you have to have some type of tense on past, present, or future. And one of the examples is he is always working. That's a proper sentence. He's always working. He's consistently working. Black people, we say he be working.
He be working.
Be means he's constantly working.
Right.
Like every day he's working. He be like every day he be working. Right.
Yeah, he be working.
Like it's always something that happens on a consistent basis.
We saw. That's
that's what they when people ask, "Yo, where your brother been? Oh, he been working.
He be working." But if I say he working, a lot of times that can mean he just started a job. He finally got a job. Or he working now.
I remember in the 90s where we could decipher where somebody was from, either by their accent or by their dialect. Like people from New York and New Jersey would say, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
People in Philly would say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could just by that small difference, you could tell where somebody was from. But now they say both of those terms no matter where you are.
Yeah, it's universal. Like I said, a lot of music made it universal. So your favorite rapper could be from Chicago, and now your dialect has turned into Chicago dialect. So if you hear, especially like when Atlanta was popping in hip hop, everybody was saying shawty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you ain't know if people were from Atlanta or what. But at first, that was Atlanta thing. What up, though?
I just want to be clear on this podcast for people from different areas. DC was the first place to call people shorty.
Yeah.
But y'all say shorty, they say shawty.
Even dirty. This wasn't Nelly. DC was the first one called people dirty.
DC
What's happening, dirty?
DC got Slim and Mo though.
We got
What's up,
Slim.
Mo?
Yeah,
What's
we
up,
got
Slim?
Yeah, we got that.
I know.
But we got Shorty too.
On Sonny's softball team last year, I was calling all the kids like G, like come on G. One of the kids was like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "That's Chicago term."
You know what I'm saying? Like New York, what up, son? New Orleans, what up, Wody? Baltimore, not Baltimore, Baltimore. What up, Mo? You know what I'm saying? So you
and what I love about I guess you could say the DMV.
Don't start that DMV. Don't start that DMV shit.
The word yeah.
Don't start that
The way the word yeah is used, it could be like, yeah, I'm about to go over there. Yeah.
Let's get this. There's no such thing as DMV.
Oh my goodness.
There's no such thing.
Why not?
Because they're drastically different.
Maryland,
They are. They're drastically
Maryland,
different.
Baltimore,
The only
DC.
one that don't have their own culture is Virginia. So stop lumping them with DC and Maryland.
Well, we're not DMV here in the Southern
even
Virginia
Northern
anyway.
Virginia is not DC. They might work in DC, but they're not DC. Stop lumping them together. There's no DMV. Quit it.
But if you take something simple like "What's up," that's one phrase that means many different things.
Depending on how you say it.
Yeah, if you say what's up, like that can mean like what up?
Yeah, that's
we got a problem.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as a greeting like "What up," or in New York, if you say "What up," then they're gonna look at you and say, "What up?"
What up?
Yeah.
No, like be like
It depends on the situation.
like
when
what's
you say
happening.
what's up.
No, what's
Yeah.
happening there?
Yeah, like we said in the beginning, it's about tone, sound, and rhythm. How it comes out is how we know how to take it.
If he had beef with somebody and you show up and you was like, "What's up?" It ain't because you speaking,
Right.
Yeah.
It's because you want to know what's happening. You know?
Another problem that we do that's different from the English language is we take the is and are out of sentences because sometimes it's just not necessary. So instead of John is tripping, John tripping. Like I don't need the is, John tripping. Like right now at this current moment, John tripping. Now if I say John be tripping, that means John tripping all the time.
all the time. It's crazy. Now, have you guys ever heard some dialect that you didn't even understand?
Yeah, but even in my
Nah,
mind,
like you can figure it
I
out.
can use context clues to
And
figure out what it is that they're saying.
Because that's kind of where I'm at now, especially when I hear people from like Louisiana. When I hear them
Sometimes
talk,
their accent is just
their
it's
accent and
too
their
country,
dialect,
and I don't understand.
and I hear them talk, it take me a minute to figure out what he
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
You know, it's not like before you quickly translate right off the top.
Yeah.
But now it take a second.
Yeah,
right?
most of the time it's for me, it's the accents. Like if I hear you talking like in a real drawing accent, I have to like really curve my
Yeah.
brain to figure out what that word that you
So
just said.
What I really like is I like selective people. I like people who can talk that way and then they know how to talk a different way so another group of people can understand. That's what I like. But now when people say things that I may not understand and I say that again, they say it exactly the same way they said it the first time. So it doesn't
Yeah.
help me,
Yeah.
right? So most people are intellectual enough to know, okay, he didn't get it the way I
Yeah.
just said it. Let me say it another way, right? Not now. They just said the same way they said it before.
Right.
Either you get it or you don't, right? But that's like one of my struggles is some of the stuff they say now. What the fuck they talking about?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that is just,
That's because I'm old.
I think a lot of that stuff is just Southern talk, right? Because like you're from DC and you live times in New York. So if you hear somebody say, like if you didn't really have like any relationship with your mother's side of the family that lived here in this area, hear somebody say, oh, they don't make me no never mind, right? In your mind, that makes no sense at all.
sense. That's right.
But in the South, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Don't make me no never mind.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of things that I heard as a kid that even today I laugh when I hear it, like over yonder. Where
Yeah.
the fuck? Where's
Yeah.
over yonder? They make up terms like Munyear. Munyear is damn near. Munyear got hit by a car. Come on now. Come on, fam. Come on.
But you know, we do that.
That's tough right there,
we do that
man.
with names too, because a name that's over here, we always knew her as Mershala, Grandma Mershala.
Right.
So when I was doing our ancestry, I'm like, who was this? And Mom was like, her name is Mary Charlotte. How the hell did y'all get Marshall out of Mary Charlotte?
Put them all together.
Yeah, quick joke, right? Quick joke. Subject entertainer said he went down south and he had a cousin. His cousin talked real fast. And he said his cousin said, hey, my name Carlos Johnson, but you can call me Bominicious. You can call me Bominicious. So he started calling him Bominicious. Hey, Bominicious, when you went to the store after you get that beer, come on to the house, right? And he said he had another cousin. Said, what you call him? He said, I called him Bominicious. He said it was all right for me to call him Bominicious. He said, nah, man. He said, people call him by his initials.
He said, nah, man, his name's CJ.
People call him by his initials. You know, so for me, the speed in which people used to talk sometimes and how they clump words together would be difficult for me to understand.
Yeah, a lot of our shit run together.
Yeah, it took me a while to really understand. And sometimes you have to look at people kind of sideways, and then you figure, does it really matter? Yeah. You know what I mean? Do I really need to know what he really saying? Yeah. You know, and then you just go about your business. But it can be tough sometimes. So I often put myself in the place of a white American when I hear people talk, somebody, especially cops.
Yeah.
Because I hear the way. Because if you have somebody that's consistently been in trouble and they're starting at a young age, the one thing they're probably not getting is education. Mm-hmm. So they're not really understanding that these people can't understand them when they're talking and they're trying to tell them what happened. And listening to them sometime, part of what law enforcement is trying to do is understand them.
Yeah.
Before they can even decipher whether they're telling the truth or not, I got to figure out how I can understand you.
Right.
You know, and it's almost like you need an interpreter. And I know we laugh about that sometimes, but they bring an interpreter in if a person can't speak good English, right? Sometimes you might need an interpreter to understand our dialect, you know, so you can better understand, and vice versa, because some of the lingo that cops use can be confusing as hell.
Right.
You know,
now, a lot of I know on the episode on The Wire that actually got flip-flopped. Method Man, who played Cheese on The Wire, had shot and killed his dog, and they got him on the phone, said, man, I had to kill my dog. So they thought he meant like one of his friends. Homeboys. So when they got him in the interrogation room, they like, where's the body? He was like, unless like the animal people came and picked him up. Like, what are you talking about? Said, he killed his actual dog, not like his dog.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. And we are back. I'll jump right back in. One of the other things that don't follow the standard English language is omission of the final consonant. And what I mean by that is, see, a lot of our things come from just Southern white people. Like this one is in general like a black thing, but we incorporate it in our language because of that Southern roots that we have on the plantation. So instead of saying past, it's just pass.
That's right.
Instead of saying hand, it's just hand. You eliminate that last consonant or whatever, and that's always been a part of the African American language.
You see it readily in words like chilling. We take off the G.
Yeah. We have serial verbs. So it's I'm gonna run and go get something to eat. Double negative. So it's not he is not a ball player.
He ain't
no ball player.
He
ain't no ball player. So the no doesn't cancel the ain't that's in front of it.
Both of them are equally important.
Right. He ain't no ball player.
So what's the one that Charlie Clips always do? I tried told you.
Again, removing the is and the are from a sentence. You know, he is good. He good. We are going. We going. We feel like it's not necessary to use that is or the are. Like,
nah, that's not because when Cam was here, we both said something different, and Dad ain't know what the hell we were talking about.
yeah, that happens a lot now.
What you said? You said you was gonna slide.
Oh yeah, I said I was gonna slide,
and I said I was gonna push up. What the hell is y'all talking?
What did Cameron say?
I don't think he. No, you was the only one that said what the hell y'all talking about.
I thought Cameron said one too.
Okay. Subject verb agreement. This is something that's actually just totally wrong, but we don't care. So instead of using doesn't, we constantly use don't. So this doesn't taste good, then this don't taste good. It's not correct grammar of English, but it's something that we do.
Nah, that ain't busting.
Now I want everybody to tell me one that bugs the hell out of you. Something that black people say that when they say it, it almost embarrasses you when you hear people say it. We all got one.
I think about it.
I'm gonna go ahead and tell you mine now. Library. What is that? Is that a fruit? Is that a fruit? It's not library. It's library. That one drives. I'm almost embarrassed when I hear people say it. Right? It drives me crazy. Here, I'm gonna give you one more. We were conversating. See, conversating is not a word, people. Neither is conversated. It's not a word. That's not even Ebonics.
Right. I got to think about that one. But of course, you know, the standard English have all of these rules, and again, go back to not having the ability to read and write for so long that we didn't follow those rules, and a lot of these things got passed down from generation to generation. But the Harlem Renaissance that we talked about on this podcast really changed the reading and the writing and acceptance of this language.
That's right.
With people like Zora Hurston, if you read the book, Their Eyes Was Watching God, who could speak proper English, who could write proper English, but when she went back to her native town, she said, this is not the way that Black people talk. So she began to write exactly how Black people would talk. And if you read that book, it's almost a struggle of reading the book because you have to be able to understand the language to understand what it is that she's saying sometimes as she write or as she's writing particular dialogue. But it's important to understand because Black language is a part of that English language, the same way as Black history is a part of American history. It's just just a different side of the coin. This is why it's so culturally beautiful, because we took bits and pieces of things that from our own culture and added into the English language. That's made it acceptable, at least a lot of times throughout the world. But like, again, like you said earlier, it doesn't always have to be verbal. Like sometimes it could just be nonverbal. Like Key and Peele did a skit with Obama, right? With the handshakes.
That's right.
When we dap up, we bring it in for the hug, and it's love and embrace just in that handshake, and it is communication
That's right.
that you don't normally get from other people. Like you rarely see when you don't see white people shake hands like that. Like we really embrace each other just off a handshake and verbalization. If you listen to a Black person tell a joke, I've heard of white people tell this, like white comedians laugh at this all the time about if you hear a Black people laughing, how it's so dramatic.
That's right.
Somebody tell a joke, we got to slap each other. We got to get up, walk away. Boy, you stupid.
Yeah,
you ain't got no sense. Like it's so, like as Cedric the Entertainer said, it's dramatization.
Yeah, we
got to
go
be
all out.
Yeah.
Especially when it's really funny.
Absolutely. But those are just important things. So before we get into, well, let me just say that. So before we even get into like certain phrases and words, like we have to understand in the early age, and I see it in my nephews, I see it in my niece, I see it in my daughter, that at an early age, you already understand how to code switch. Like at work, we have to code switch. Like the way I talk, when I know when it's time to be professional, I know it's time to be professional.
Well, you know, that started with your parents.
Right.
You guys remember what I used to tell you when text messaging first came out? You send me a text using the number 4 for the word for, delete.
Yeah.
Brother ain't reading that.
Nah.
Pops don't get down like that.
Right.
So you learn early on, too, how to talk to your parents.
Right.
So you talk to your boys, nah, bro, I ain't going.
Yeah.
Mom say, you going? And you better not say, nah, ma, I ain't going.
Yeah.
Better be, no, ma'am, I'm not going. I'm not
Right.
going with you. You know?
Yeah, so at an early age,
You learn
understand.
early.
Yeah, you learn early, like in school.
Or you
like
should.
If the
You
teachers
should
talk,
learn
yeah,
early.
you should. Like not all people do.
Yeah, you
but,
should learn early.
If you come from a solid household, then you're gonna learn at an early age on when it is time to code switch. Because I've heard there are people who probably go into interviews or go into the courtroom and they still use this dialect without understanding how to code switch. And then for me personally, when I'm at work, I use both. There's a few words in there. I'm always gonna say, "Oh nah."
Yeah. But
I never use no.
You still know when to do it and how to do
Right.
it. You got to call it being selective.
Right.
Some people call it code switching. I call it being selective.
Right.
You have to be selective. You have to be selective in how you communicate with people because the purpose is for them to understand.
Yeah.
So if you're just going to talk the way you want to talk, then that means you don't give a fuck whether people understand what you're saying or not, right?
Right.
The objective is I want you to understand what I'm saying.
Right. It's always three of mine is always gonna be nah, appreciate it, and my bad.
Yeah, that appreciate it is always number one for me. Appreciate it. Oh, appreciate you.
I don't know if I have a universal.
It's always my bad.
I know one of them is listen, because I use that like some people use yo.
Yeah.
So I use listen, and that doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I say listen. This is where we are, right? So I always use that. And the only reason, because my dad used to use it. So I use it because he used to use it. Some people use, let me tell you something.
Right. The best way to understand if you code switch is by when you talk on the phone, right? Because our parents did it too. Yeah. If the school called, it was hello. Yeah. Yes, this is she.
Hey, girl.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
Somebody else
called. Hello. Girl, what you doing? Like, it's totally different, right? Like, I understand, like, when I answer the phone, if I don't know the number and I answer, I'm going to answer it professionally. Hello? If it's like, yo, babe, hey, what up?
Yeah,
but if it's, hey, is this Mr. Stevens? Yeah, this is he. I understand how to code switch.
If it's a black voice on it, you're talking to him.
Yeah.
Can I speak to Jerome? You're talking to him. You got him. Yeah, it's crazy. Now, come on with the word. Y'all gotta have one that aggravates the hell out of you. Do you wash clothes or do you wash clothes? Is there R in the word wash?
I don't think I got a saying that's embarrassing. I got one that really gets on my nerves, and Mom do it all the time. And she'll be talking, and after like maybe 3 or 4 words, she'll just keep saying, "You know what I'm saying?" Yeah. Then they go on. Then
because you want to say, "I don't."
Yeah. And I think yours is strictly based off because you're from DC.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's nothing that annoys us here in the South.
Library?
Because that's how we say it.
That don't bother you? What washing clothes?
No, that's country. That's how grandma said it. Doesn't bother us.
Cereals don't bother you?
No.
You
probably even get mad if we say shoes and sneakers. Like, no.
Yeah. No, really, tennis shoes bother me. When people say, "Oh, put your tennis shoes on," you play tennis? You don't play tennis, do you? They're sneakers. Come on.
Nothing bothers me. I would say it doesn't bother me when black people do it. It bothers me when white people use outdated words. Oh, that's whack.
Yeah.
Like, fam, no, we're not doing that no more.
Well, that's good. At least because that is something. Because then it should bother you when you hear old rappers using new dialect. Did that bother you?
No, because they've evolved. But there are still New York rappers who use the word whack.
But when you hear like old school rappers trying to rap like new school artists, does that bother you at all? Because you can tell it's a struggle. It's not natural. So if you heard like Rakim trying to rap like some of these young rappers, you think?
I think it's a difference. I think it'd be different if he said trying to rap like them or adjusting. I think there is a difference.
Because I still struggle.
Because I think the best rapper who's adjusted in any era is Fabulous, right? Fabulous grew up in rapping in the 90s, and you can see his style evolve so much that he can use, like, Fab can come out with an album right now and it still sound like that early 2000s feel with new slang, and it doesn't feel forced.
Because he has a more universal style.
Yeah,
he has more of a style that can fit.
Jay has done it. Jay has done it. Nas has done it. But I think you're talking about like 80s rappers.
Yeah, like Rakim. I can't see Rakim rapping like Fabulous.
No, he won't.
And using the same dialect.
No, they're not gonna do that. Like, you're not gonna hear KRS-One, like, and they're also stuck in their ways. They're pioneers. They're not gonna change.
Now, I mean, I've heard KRS-One use some of the newer dialect, but again, he lives in that environment. Right. He lives in that environment, so he hears it every day. He probably uses it.
And then,
in his
and then
everyday
you also got to
conversation.
understand that a lot of those people, like when you talk about KRS-One, Rakim, LL Cool J, Will Smith, like these are people in our culture who've grown. Like
Yeah.
there's some rappers that didn't grow. Like when I mean grow as a human being.
Right.
So I don't expect LL Cool J to come out with a record talking like the slang. He's going to talk like an adult.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
To
agree with that.
to Bake's point, when we say, "Oh, it's lit," like that's Fab. Fab came up with that a few years ago. He had a song called "The Lituation," and in there he was saying how, you know, something we use all the time. He just made it popular with "I'm lit." Like, "Oh, it's lit." The game was lit. Like all of that. That was Fab that coined that phrase.
And now me personally, I don't know about my nephews or my niece. My daughter don't like when I use certain slang words.
Like what?
Anything and shit. Sometimes she don't even know that this was around before you were born.
Right,
Stick.
right.
So if I say certain things, she'll be like, "Dad, no." I'm like, we've been saying this for a long time.
What for me, my kids kind of get their slang from me. Now Jayceon said one the other night that I had heard, but I just don't use. We was watching a basketball game and somebody did something and he looked and was like, "He ain't got no riz." Now I know what it means, but I was like, I ain't never used that. But to hear him use it, it was just crazy.
My mom hated slang, but my dad inadvertently gave me the credence to use it. So I was getting directions to understand how to ride the bus. And just so I could understand the bus line, so when me and my mom would ride the bus, I knew what bus to get on and off, trying to prep me for the future. And we used to have to catch a B-52 to go to Capitol Heights and or wherever. I'm saying Capitol Heights, but downtown D.C.
Right. I'm pretty sure Uncle G gonna text you and tell you that you got the location.
Probably
right.
somebody probably will. But anyway, it was a B-52. And one day, so my mom was quizzing me and she was like, "Okay, we going downtown to the doctor's office. Which bus do you catch?" And I said, "B-52. And she said, "What?" And I said, "B-52. And she said, "No, it's B-52. That's what I said. So my dad came in and just for people who don't know, everybody called my dad either Battle or Big Alvin. So Big Alvin, if he's going downtown, what bus do we catch? My dad say, B-52. Boom, there it is. I can use slang, Mom, right? And I'll never forget it. And I remember afterwards, my mom questioned my dad about it. He just laughed because he knew what I was saying.
Yeah.
You know, he knew that I was using that slang term because that's what everybody says, right? And he was saying, well, listen, in order for him to understand what other people saying, he's going to have to be able to say it too, you know? But that gave us credence. My mom she hated slang. She hated it.
Yeah, but grandma's also from here and also highly educated.
That's right.
And
that's right. Because my mom didn't
yeah.
like even the Munyears. She didn't like
Yeah.
that. She didn't like when my grandfather in down south used those terms either. She didn't like it. And she didn't want us using them either.
All right, so let's get into some of these terms. We've surfaced it. Let's get into some of them.
You straight. It can mean, do you want to fight? It can mean, are you okay? It can mean, how have you been? It can mean, you're welcome. It can mean, do we got a problem? It can mean, do you need money? It can be, because I don't know if it ever happened to y'all, but a white guy could be in the store, and you could not be in this way, and he'll say, "Excuse me, you straight?"
Yeah.
Oh, you good?
You good? You good?
You good?
For sure. Like that's a universal one. You can intertwine that with you straight, you good, or you all right. Like, but that can mean different things according to pitch, according to
sound,
context clues.
what's going on?
However you approach it.
I got another one that's not slang. It's just a phrase that I hate when people say it. I don't care what color you are when you say it. No offense to you. That means you get ready to say something offensive to me.
Yeah.
Don't fucking say it, right?
Yeah.
I hate that
Now,
one.
black people, when they about to figure, they say, "Oh, I ain't trying to be funny or nothing."
Yeah, I ain't trying to be funny. You are. Yeah, you are trying to be funny. Or I ain't trying to call you out. Yeah, you are. You are.
Couldn't be me, which means you put up with it, but I wouldn't if I was you. Couldn't be me.
One that we do, I hate it when black people said to other black people, we family. Because that normally means that's giving you the okay to fuck me over.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, we family. We family, ain't we?
Yeah, I guess that would be one that get on my nerves, is we family. Because niggas will use that to, they could do something to you, you not talk to them no more, and they'll tell other people, yeah, I don't know why you acting like that, we family. So you ain't gonna tell them what you did to me to make me act like that.
Yeah, this is one that's hard. And I think a lot of people going to understand what I'm saying. I know you two will. Some people use the word nigger like they use the word yo.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of niggers, it doesn't mean color. It means male individual.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what color it is. It just means I'm talking about a male.
Yeah.
Yo, this nigga came up to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's black. Just mean it's a dude.
Yeah.
That's all that means, right? So there's a lot of people that use terms that way, and it doesn't mean what people think it does.
Yeah.
But the people that they're talking to absolutely know what it means, right?
Right.
So that communication is a little bit different. But for the person on the outside, he used the word nigger.
Yeah.
Doesn't realize that he's using a universal term for a male individual.
I know this is touchy, but that's probably the one that bothers me.
It's nigger.
In different settings. I think black people should know how to read the room sometimes. And sometimes, yeah, we use it, but in certain settings, it just shouldn't be used.
I know you and I disagreed on this before
Yeah.
because you feel like it's a term that we use it, we give other people credence to use. I disagree. I'm always going to say this is, if I have a nickname for you, it's okay me to call you that. But what's going to happen if somebody else didn't?
Oh no, I don't think white people should use it at all.
So I think, to me, the term can be used as a word of endearment.
It is.
You know, and I got a brother that every other word is nigga.
Yeah.
But when he say it,
And a friend.
it's used as a term of endearment.
Right.
We got a friend, Sean. He uses it all the
Yeah.
time. But it's used in the term of we're like that.
Yeah.
We're close. This is how we communicate, and it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I know some people get embarrassed if they use those terms and white people around, and in my mind, I'm going, that's not his audience. Why do
Right.
you care about
Right.
how they feel about that term?
Right.
That's not his audience.
Right.
And if they're truly friends of his, he's used it with them before.
But you think that's like if you working in a professional setting?
I still think that even in a professional setting, because it happens the other way around. When you got your white group of employees around having a conversation, you really don't think they're going to always use proper terms when they're having a conversation?
Okay.
So my theory is, if it's okay for them, then it's okay for us. If you can have a private conversation and use terms that you might not want other people to hear, especially black people, then we can do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Stop eavesdropping on my conversation and you won't hear it. Right? If it's meant for you, we'll pull you in. If it ain't meant for you, take your ass somewhere else. Right?
I think Bill Burr had a bit that he said the difference between white and black people. I think he said white people say this motherfucking Asian, where black people say this Asian motherfucker. It just sounds totally different.
Yeah, the story goes different. The way we
curse is just so creative anyway.
It's the rhythm.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's that rhythm, man.
You got words like low key, means it's underrated. This ain't that. Whatever you had in your mind didn't come out right. Like whatever you thought this was supposed to be, this ain't that.
Say yours. Say your popular.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm gonna let you say it. I'll let you say it.
Yepper depper pepper stepper. Noper doper Mr. Roper. And you can switch the N to Noper doper Dr. Pepper.
If somebody tell you to come somewhere, you ask who all over there.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be over there with static.
Yeah.
No people you want to. This is one that a lot of black parents use from the get go. Told you that from the get go.
I'm about 10 minutes away, mean I ain't left yet. I'm about to pull in, means I'm 10 minutes away.
That's why Boo said, I swear to God. Means I'm not lying. I swear to God.
How about this one? Wait till we get home. Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah, for sure. Plenty of times.
It's on. That means you done show it off. Yeah.
If you hear somebody say, all right, bet, that means that's a plan.
Yeah.
We got confirmation. All right, bet. Mug. Now, we use mug to not cuss. So you say mug in front of people you respect. So instead of saying motherfucker, you say mug. He blacker than a mug.
That's right. Yeah, that's what we used to say. That's 70s.
I came across a meme. It said only black people would understand. And I'm going to read the letters. Is G, Y, B, A, I, T, G, D, H, B, F, I, B, Y, G, D, A. And when I read them letters,
Get your black ass in the house before
I beat your goddamn ass. Well, as soon as I read them letters, I started filling them in. I already knew what it meant.
If a black person say you acting funny, that means you not acting how I want you to act.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Oh, you acting brand new.
Yeah, you acting brand new. You acting a little different.
Now, growing up, I didn't understand it, but now that when my kids go outside and I'm the parent, I understand what it means now. You smell like outside.
Yeah, you smell like outside. Y'all's mom used to use this one all the time. You showing off in front of your friends. Showing off in front of your friends.
Or and that joint is you smelling your pee, ain't you?
Ripping and running. It means you've been running there. As an adult, I understand this. I've been ripping and running all day.
What about in and out?
Yeah. Don't be running in and out.
In and out my house.
If a black person say, how you going to tell me? That means I'm not lying and why you questioning me because I was there when it happened. How you going to tell me? Now, this is key for white people to understand if you're listening. If we say that's crazy, and you telling the story and we say that's crazy like 4 or 5 times, that means we're not interested in the story. We're waiting for you to wrap it up.
Yeah. That also applies to black people.
Yeah. So, my dog got sick. Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
But they don't ever get it, though. They keep going.
But if you ever listen to a black person tell a story, it's going to start off by saying, so let me tell you. Or check, boom, right? And then in the story, when it's going to flip, it's going to say, not to mention. Not to mention means I'm adding some extra to the story that's going to connect the dots.
I actually like the one that people in Roanoke used to say. I don't even know if they still say it or not, but they used to say, when they go ahead and tell you a story, they would say,
tell me why.
Yeah, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. That shit, oh yeah.
But check this out.
You know it's going to be good, right?
Hey,
you know it's going to be good when they tell you why. Yeah, go ahead, tell me why.
But check this out. And then when they add mind you to the story, mind you, yeah. Which means I'm about to put 2 and 2 together.
It's about to be good. You want to listen up.
And then you get to the end of it, but at the end of the day,
oh yeah,
at the end of the day,
that's mine right there.
And also, at the end of the day, really got 2 meanings because if you arguing with somebody, whatever one say at the end of the day, that means forget all that other shit that we was talking about.
At the end of the day,
this is what I mean right here.
You started sending us off by saying between me and you. That means this is a secret.
I'm probably lying, so don't tell nobody.
Between me and you, or you ain't hear from me, which means don't go back and tell nobody that I said this.
Drop a name, don't go tell nobody I said it.
You ain't hear from me though.
The people on the ridge, Brittany's mom's joint is shut your mouth and keep on talking. That means I can't believe what you saying, but keep going.
Yeah. Keep going. I want to hear.
Like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Nah, you lie. You lie. Listen to a black conversation is so dramatic, bro.
I still laugh when I watch Sanford and Son, and I watch how the white police officer say something, and then they look at the black cop and he got to translate. That shit is hilarious, man. And then when they say something, the white cop look at the black cop, then he translates for him to understand. That happens a lot.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to wrap this up. And we are back. I'm going to jump right back in. Here's a few situations for white America. If you ever heard these terms, that means leave or get some cover or whatever. I'm about to show off. If a black person say I'm about to show off, I'm about to show my ass.
I'm about to show out.
I'm about to turn up.
Turn up.
Oh, no, fuck this. And then get up.
Nah, fuck that. They got me heated. That means I'm angry. They got me fucked up, which means you don't know who you playing with. You got me fucked up. I ain't the one, which means I'm not the one that I'm not the whoever you think I am. I ain't him.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Now, what you're not gonna do is you probably hear this at work. If a boss try to tell a black person to do that, we're not fit to do right here. What we're not gonna do.
What you're not gonna do is tell me this.
A big one. It's about that time, or what you about to do, fam.
Yeah.
That means I'm politely asking you to leave my house.
Yeah, because it's getting late.
Oh yeah, that's the one who said, I'm about to go to bed, right? I'm about to go to bed, right?
You yawn a few times.
That means I don't know what you're gonna do. You ain't gotta go home, but you gotta get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Our compliments are great too. Oh, that's hard. Oh, that shit's tight. It's fire.
Where you going?
Yeah. We go, okay. Okay.
Trying to get
Some
like
sort of-
you.
Okay. I see you. I see you. I know in the Creed 2 movie, a lady posted it on TikTok, and I commented on it. It's got a lot of likes on the comments because there was a scene where Adonis Creed really didn't want to be called like the son of Creed, and he really wasn't embracing it. And one of the little kids from Philly on a motorcycle seen him outside, and they was like, I heard you Creed's son. He was like, yeah. And little kid was like, that's what's up. And drove off. And I was like, it's funny because it's black motivation.
That's right.
Like, okay, that's what something means. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah,
like, that's something good.
I remember I was at the ball down. I ain't gonna use no names, but I think I was like probably like 12, and I shot the ball, made it. Guy got the rebound, didn't give it back. He was about to shoot, and he turned and looked and was like, "You Jerome's son, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "That's what's up," and threw me the ball back. He didn't even shoot it.
That's what's up. Yeah, we gotta, and I think you experienced this for a long time. Some people used to call you Lil Rome.
Yeah,
yeah. That was something we used to do all the time too. In fact, I used to call my niece Shatise. I used to call her Little Stacy since she was probably like 16, 17.
Little
Right?
Stacy. That is some of the black community. You call them who their dad is, but we also shorten a lot of stuff too, right?
Yeah.
A win turned into a W, turned into a dub.
Yeah.
Well, now the kids have switched that because a dub now means it's a loss. So somebody be like, "Yo, you going over there?" Nah, that's a dub. That mean I ain't going.
Speaking of what people say when kids do something good, I adapted what my dad used to say. Well, all right. Well, all right. He made straight A's. Well, all right.
Well, all right.
Well, all
JNC will tell him something. Well, all right.
All right. That's right. Well, that's all right. Magic Johnson, we go from here. We go from here. That's all right.
The kids changing hot dogs to glizzies.
Huh?
So a hot
That's
dog,
what they call
it's called a glizzy.
So I like glizzies?
Yeah.
And they make it funny. They'll make fun of you if they see you eating the glizzy.
They eating the glizzy. Yo. Yo. He going crazy on that glizzy.
You can't eat nothing like that. They see you eating a corn dog, they gonna go crazy.
Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
So I guess they don't eat them.
They eat them.
They eat them in public.
Hey, yo.
You going crazy on that glizzy, my boy.
But black people, of course, your name Jerome, people gonna call you Rome, or they gonna shorten and they call you Jay. Like we gonna shorten something, right?
Yeah, we ain't gonna call you that because it ain't in rhythm.
Right.
Especially if you got a name that's like 15 syllables.
Yeah.
I mean, that ain't in rhythm, man. I can't call you. It's got to be on the one. That ain't on the one.
So somebody like
syllables.
Demetrius Jamel
Yeah,
Morant.
no, just call him dude.
Ja.
What up, dude?
Ja. We're gonna call him Ja.
That ain't, I can't call your name in rhythm.
Yeah.
You know?
But we that's something we're gonna do. But the black language is so creative.
I got
man.
one more, and I don't know why we do this, but if I'm riding with you, and if you miss the turn, I'm not gonna say, "Yo, you was supposed to make that." Where you going?
Oh yeah, I did that too. Because obviously you ain't going where I thought. We ain't going where I thought we were going. So you got something else.
Nah, the exit was back there.
Yeah, because really and truly, back in the day, you try to tell a black person you missed the turn, they be like, "You want to drive? You want to drive? When you get your own car, nigga, that's when you tell me I missed the turn."
Nah, but the language is beautiful, man. White people, I know y'all struggle.
Before we go though, we gotta talk about one thing real quick.
Go ahead.
What do y'all think about Governor Youngkin's State of the Union on education the other night? Did y'all check him out?
I didn't see that.
I didn't see him. For those that did, I want to bring up one quick thing. And it goes along with what we're talking about when we talk about language and communication. There's sometimes undertone messages in people's communication. And I think Governor Youngkin gave a great example of some undertones that people may not be aware of. So in specific, he talked about Fort Monroe. He did not want to teach critical race theory in school. He did not want to talk about Project 1619 in school. He wanted to say, I want to talk more about real history, like what happened at Fort Monroe and how everybody should go to Fort Monroe and opposed to critical race theory. Now, for people that don't know what Fort Monroe is, it used to be called Point Comfort, which is where the first ship carrying enslaved Africans landed in America. And thus you get 1619, the beginning of what's called slavery. But he says he wants people to understand the history of Fort Monroe. But in terms of not that, but also at Fort Monroe is where a lot of blacks seek refuge during the Civil War, because what happened is a lot of the slaves from the South were being used to build things for the Confederate Army. And so what would happen is when they got captured building things or transporting things, by law, they were supposed to return those slaves to the slave owners by law. So what General Butler decided to do was not do that. Keep them and put them to work for the Union Army. And so blacks would flee and go to Fort Monroe for refuge. But the refuge wasn't emancipation. It wasn't freedom, so to speak. It was, we much rather you be here than working for the Confederates. That's not going to be taught to you in school about Fort Monroe. So the undertones of communication is important. And what we talked about was fun, right? But there are undertones to some of the things that you hear people say, and it works both ways. And I want people to be aware of that. So when you're learning about Fort Monroe in school, ask the questions about, okay, why was it a refuge for blacks? How did that come about? And then go back to, wasn't that the beginning of enslavement of Africans in America? Bring that up, because this is probably not going to be taught freely.
Absolutely. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Peace.